Hello, this is the fourth talk in a series of lectures on the central nervous system, the periphery nervous system, and the waters they live in. And in this lecture we're going to be looking at how this system eliminates, how it clears toxins and CO2 from itself. There are anatomy paintings to go with this lecture on my website. You can download them from my website. They will be better quality than the ones I'm showing in the video. Here we have the central nervous system, the cerebrum, the lower brain, the spinal cord, surrounded in cranial fluid. So in the second seminar we looked at how the waters or the cranial fluid for this whole area were made. And we'll quickly just look at that, and then we'll look at how this also clears, how this eliminates, how it's also the elimination system for the central nervous system. So the fluid, the waters of this area, come into the central nervous system through the capillaries. There are 400 miles of capillaries, and the water comes out through the capillaries, and also oxygen, glucose, minerals, that all comes out. This is like a fine gauge selective filter, and it's 400 miles long through the whole central nervous system, producing this very refined, watery environment, very nutritious, very oxygenated, very refined, very aqueous. A lot of water, 99. The water in it is 99% water. So this water travels off between all of the cells swim, or the water moves through the cells, and water provides their nutrition. It provides the oxygen for these cells. These cells breathe the oxygen in the water. They take in the oxygen. All of the cells receive the glucose. They live on glucose. They receive the glucose and the minerals. And then there's a reaction between the glucose and minerals, between the glucose and oxygen. They come together, they produce energy, and that runs the cells. And the byproduct of glucose and oxygen coming together is carbon dioxide, and that comes out of the cells with the water into the area around. So the water coming from the capillaries comes out, and to start off with, it's water, glucose, oxygen and minerals. And then when the cells have breathed and eaten that and it comes back out, then it's 99% water, CO2, it's carbon dioxide, and different byproducts. And this has to find its way back to the heart. So all of these cells are like little people. They're all breathing, they're all eating, they all breathe. They breathe the oxygen. The oxygen, we see the oxygen in the air. We think of the breath in the air. It comes in the air, the oxygen. But thereafter, it's in fluid, and all of the fluids are based in water. So the oxygen is travelling in water, and all of the cells are breathing that oxygen, and they're eating the nutriments. So they breathe, every cell breathes, and they physically breathe. There's a motion of the breath in every cell as well. Our whole body is breathing, feeding, and the oxygen isn't in the air anymore, it's in the water, the fluids of the body. Then after they've eaten, after they've breathed, there's the carbon dioxide. The same way as we breathe out carbon dioxide, we breathe out toxins. Each cell breathes out carbon dioxide in water, comes out into this environment, and different toxins. And this has to make its way back to the heart. So how does that happen? How does it get back to the heart? Well, let's first look at how that happens in the rest of the body, then we'll apply it to this. So in the rest of the body, the heart pumps out blood, water, with blood cells, nutriments. This goes around and comes to the capillaries, very fine capillaries, wide enough for one blood cell, within the whole body, including the central nervous system, 60,000 miles of capillaries. And the blood goes into the capillaries, and releasing out from the blood, we get water, oxygen, and food. This comes out as a fluid out from the capillaries around the cells, and the cells breathe the oxygen, eat the food, drink the water, and then they eliminate out. The water comes out, CO2 comes out, and waste comes out into the water or fluid around the cells. Some of this is picked up by the capillaries at the further end of the capillaries, where it's now venous blood. This is arterial blood, this is venous blood. It's on its way back to the heart. It's absorbed by the venous blood back into the capillaries, the water, the CO2 and the byproducts received back into the capillaries of the venous blood supply, and that works its way back to the heart. So it started raining, you may hear a bit of rain. Now, this is the thing. When it leaves the heart, it's at 100% pressure. Heart is strong pump, it's pumping it out. Now it goes through 70,000 miles of capillaries. This is a lot of capillaries. And that pressure drops down because it's got to go through all these tiny little passageways, so the pressure becomes less. By the time it's come out of those 70,000 miles or 60 to 70,000 miles of capillaries, pressure is down by 90%. It's only 10% of what it originally was. So it's not moving so quickly. It's the same volume, but it's going slower. So the venous blood can't take back to the heart the same volume of fluid that the arterial blood brings from the heart, because it's going slower. There's less pressure. It's meandering slowly, whereas the arterial is going fast, 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 fast. And you've got the capillaries coming back slow, 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 back to the heart. So it can't take that extra fluid. So where does it go? It's absorbed by the lymph, which is very slow, back to the heart. And at the heart it joins. As it comes in, they both join together, the lymph and the venous, and they come back into the heart together. The lymph, it's not a small body, it's a large body. There's twice as much lymph as there is blood. So there's 4 times as much lymph going back to the heart as there is venous blood. It's a large body of fluid. Wherever there's a cell, wherever there's anything in the body, there is lymph going back. Now, the venous blood is taking back more fluid because it's travelling faster than the lymph. But the lymph is bigger. It's going very slowly. So the arterial blood, fast. The venous blood, slower. The lymph, very slow. And these two together take back the fluid to the heart, and also a lot of the immune system, the T cells, the different cells that will kill bacteria, kill viruses, they're in the lymph. So this all gets absorbed by the lymph, and the lymph clears. And it's a high level fluid. It's a very healing fluid. It's 90% water, so it's quite clear. So the light shines pretty good through the lymph. Quite often thought of a kind of a waste track or something, but it's a very healing fluid. The light, the energies travel through the lymph and help the whole immune system. So, in the central nervous system we don't have any lymph. No lymph. No lymph ducts. So what happens? The fluid comes into this whole area through the capillaries. It feeds the cells, and the cells breathe, they feed, then they let go the carbon dioxide, they let go of the toxins, and these all come out into this whole area. So the fluid's coming out from the capillaries and cells. I'll have some oxygen, I'll have some glucose, I'll have some minerals. In the area where it's coming out, it's 400 miles, wherever there's anything, there's a capillary. And they release this nutriments, oxygen and water. And the cells in that area will have a bit of that. Will have a bit of that, and they eat it, and it combines, and they breathe it, and it combines and produces energy, and then they have this carbon dioxide and toxins. We'll get rid of that. Out. That goes into this area. So some of that, or most of that, will be absorbed further along these. They will turn into venous. When it stops giving out its fluid, it becomes venous blood, and they will absorb. They're designed to absorb the carbon dioxide, to absorb the toxins, and that will be taken back to the heart. But what of the rest? Because the venous blood cannot take back to the heart the same amount of fluid as the arterial blood brings from the heart. So what happens to that extra fluid that is just in this space? That is in effect lymph, because it's come out of the cells into the space around the cells. It's not being received by the venous blood, so it needs to make its way back to the heart. It is in fact lymph. So you've got this large body of fluid. Some of it is being eaten and breathed, and then CO2, the water, the toxins slowly start making their way back to the heart. So how do they get there? Well, they can't go inwardly. They can't go back into the venous blood. So the only thing it can do is expand out. It travels out. And the only place for it to go is off through the dural membrane, around the whole central nervous system, and off down through the nerves. Now the nerves are open passageway for this. You can just flow through this. Not much more water in the central nervous system, but in a similar way, and we describe this later, how it flows off down through the nerves. So it easily can flow off down through the nerves, and a certain amount will go through the dural membrane. This is 99% water. Water will travel through any membrane, any cell, anywhere in the body. So it can quite happily travel through the dural membrane, but it's quite a thick, strong membrane. But in the nerves, these are open, so it will flow off down through the nerves. And we show this in more detail later on. So that, in effect, the cranial fluid, or this water, starts off as nutriments and then becomes lymph. And it travels off, out from the whole central nervous system. Well, it travels through it and down and around it and down in the ventricles and down, then out through the nerves, out into the body. And there's a whole journey to this that we will go into later, quite a profound, very interesting journey. And then at one point or another it will exit the nerve, either at the end of that particular nerve or on its journey out through the walls of the nerve, and at that point it will be picked up by the lymph and go back to the heart. So there's no lymph ducts, there's no thing to say, oh, this is going in the lymph duct. So it expands out in free form, and then in a way the nerves become lymph ducts, or cranial ducts, cranial fluid ducts, for this water, for this cranial fluid to go off out into the body, and then as it expands out of the nerves, it gets absorbed into the lymph of the body and taken back to the heart. So the cranial fluid, or the cranial fluid that has not got the oxygen and the nutriments in effect becomes lymph and travels off. It is still 99% water, so it still operates as water. It's still, communication still travels through it, the light still travels through it, our being still travels through it. Communication of the glial cells still travel through it. We may perceive within ourselves carbon dioxide and byproducts as bad. Not so, very useful. And plants, they live on carbon dioxide, they live on rotting matter, breaking down matter, and then they give out oxygen. So that's our perception that they're bad, but no, they're just there, they're slowly leaving the body, and the light can travel through that water just as well as it can travel through the water with the oxygen, with the nutrients. It can travel through the water with the carbon dioxide and the toxins. Just go through it the same. It's moving through the water. Water has an intelligence. And in the body, we have all of these immune cells in the lymph that travel through the ducts, back slowly to the heart, this large volume of fluid, 4 times the size as the venous blood, and has all of these immune cells. Well, the same within the central nervous system, except there's no ducts, it's just open. We have the microglial cells, which are the same as those T cells, but they're not travelling through ducts. They just swim. They just know. They're glial cells. They know. They hear it through the water. They know where to travel to find the infections, the viruses, the pathogens. They've got pictures of this where they've got pathogen in the middle, and then from all sides these glial cells swim in and converge on it. This knowing. Glial cells communicate and receive through the water. They know, and they just travel to that part, and if there's an infection they breed. There's more of them and they travel to that area. They just know, they communicate in this knowing. So in the same way as in the lymph we have the immune system, we have a free-form lymph swimming through the central nervous system. So it comes in, it's water, nutriments and breath, oxygen, leaves the cells, water, carbon dioxide and byproducts, and this travels off slowly through the whole central nervous system, travelling through the waters of the central nervous system, travelling out around the central nervous system, and also we'll come to these next, how the ventricles works. It drops down through the ventricles and out and off through the nerves as a very aqueous fluid, 99% water. This light, this intelligence, our own being, our own light, finds it easier because it's an easier medium to travel through. And it has a memory. It takes the memory of the light, the intelligence, off, out through the nerves to the rest of the body. Okay. I think that's it. Cool. So water travels through anything in the body. One thing that helps this fluid or lymph of the central nervous system flow off and down, one, the pressure is slightly more than in the venous blood, so it's expanding out and it's got to go somewhere, but also it's acted on by gravity. Cranial fluid, or the waters of the central nervous system, are heavier than any other fluids in the body. The water is heavier than what's dissolved in it, so it ends up being much heavier. It's being attracted by the earth much more strongly. So it's pulled down, so this whole area, there's this weight to it pulling down, and this aids it travelling downwards through the whole central nervous system, down and out, through the central nervous system, out, fluid around it, down and out, through the nerves. Notice, even when we are asleep, we have our head on our pillow, our head is raised. This aids this downward motion. cranial fluid out through the body. We go into this in much more detail, how it travels through the nerves and how that works in later seminars. But for this seminar, that is a bit like the lymph for the central nervous system leaving, and the immune system in the lymph leaving some of it through the venous blood, or most of it through the venous blood, but a body of fluid 4 times the size of the venous blood migrating off, and it hasn't got lymph ducts, so it's open source, just travels off, acted on by gravity, moving downwards, travelling out through the nerves. Okay, good. So closing your eyes, feeling this body of water and cells, and feeling the waters of this area, and allow yourself to breathe and allow it to breathe. And then this travels down with gravity, this slightly extra pressure, there's this downward pull, and it travels down and out, down through the central nervous system, around the central nervous system, down through the ventricles, and out through the nerves, carrying that light, that intelligence, the memory of that light and intelligence to the rest of the body, through the nerves. And then from there it spreads out, joins the lymph, and travels back to the heart. The lymph is the sister fluid, the cranial fluid. It is 90% water. So allowing that to travel off out through the body, and it expands out through the nerves, to the ends of the nerves and out through the nerves, received by the lymph and taken back to the heart. So the cranial fluid leaving the central nervous system, other than via the venous blood, is like the lymph for the central nervous system, and also carries the immune system for the central nervous system. Okay. Thank you.